So thank you, Bill, once again for the opportunity to be here. I see some familiar faces. Out in February, we were in LA, and we did a similar event, and I got the opportunity. Bill said, "Why don't you come on back?" I said, "Well, this time I'm bringing a powerhouse friend with me, Debra Langley." So I'm excited for this because it's very different than me just standing up here and doing a keynote. Debra and I are going to have a conversation, and y'all just get to be a fly on the wall. So I'm Greg Merrill. I was a three-time business founder early in my career, turned into a long-time Nike executive, and I stepped away last year to focus on strategic advisory and the board work that I've been doing, mostly in the brand and retail space, some work in tech, luxury fashion, and sports as well. And so again, I'm Debra, first of all, thank you. I haven't said thank you yet for joining me here. You know, these conversations are very fireside, and you never know if when a fist fight's going to break out, up here, out there, nobody knows what's going to happen. So it's like you're watching a car race. Debra, can you please share just a little bit about your background, who you are, and then we're going to jump in.
Sure. I'm a former retailer. I came out of the DKNY ecosystem. I live in Singapore, so it's a little bit of a trek here. And I work with an investment and advisory platform based in London. Prior to that, I worked with a company called Lyra Ventures, which is one of the first fashion retail technology investors. Sorry, I was very distracted by that. Right now, the firm I work with, Captus, invests in retail technology, sports technology, and fan engagement. We also run venture for Global Blue, which is the duty-free tax receipts entity. And I met Greg a few years ago, and we realized, actually, you tell the story much better than I do. So.
Well, we were first on stage, so NRF, National Retail Federation, that is, as Bill mentioned, it's a lobbying organization and a trade association that traditionally has been US focused, and now they've sort of grown overseas. It's going to become a more global organization. And last year they started their APAC region, and Debra and I were asked to come and do a fireside chat at the launch there. You know, this was their starting zone, and it was like 7,000 people. So NRF does kind of really big things, and we got to join the stage there. And I think, as you'll see, we're a little bit edgier, we're a little bit different than the most. And while Debra's kind of focused more on the investing side, and now me with the board work, we're kind of looking at the future of the industry. And what we're going to talk about today, though, is a little different, because where Manish was talking about, you know, AI and Mark and kind of robots are the step further, what we're seeing now in the retail space is more about, you know, AI in many cases in an old industry like retail is kind of an innovative future. Wouldn't it be cool if we could do all these things? And then all of a sudden, somebody shows up and we get slapped in the face with tariffs. And then it's like we're in survival mode. We're just trying to like put the house, you know, put the fire out in the house. We're not thinking about the future. We're thinking about, are we going to be alive in the next couple quarters? So we're going to kind of talk about the intersection of that and sort of what that means for the industry and what direction we might go from there. Part of our work where we overlap with the Innovation Advisory Council for the NRF is the future of retail and where is that going. And part of our duties in that board is that we are informing the NRF on where things are going, what tech, what AI applications, what companies are blossoming that they wouldn't otherwise hear about, that the world needs to know, because this disruption is coming and people are building incredible tools.
You know, as investors, we're very future focused, and there's a little bit of a tension there between retailers who are very in the moment. And having been a retailer, it's the sales number, it's the inventory management, it's the quarterly earnings, etc. The tension was probably manageable up until this year, because honestly, retail was not innovating at a pace that really needed us to be that fast. And as investors, we had a thesis about what it looked like. It was mobile, it was personalization, it was data, it was unified commerce, social commerce, etc. And then tariffs, disrupting global supply chain, we all know that. But in 10 days, there was a response from Chinese manufacturers that shocked all of us. It was 10 days of figuring out how to go right to the hearts and minds of US consumers, bypassing brands, bypassing retailers, and just establishing this incredible connection where US consumers were saying, well, what do I need that for? I can go straight to you, I can get this, I can get that, and oh, it happens in 3 weeks. Add on to that, ChatGPT comes along and says, hey, we're partnered with Shopify. And Perplexity says, hey, we're partnered with PayPal. And now I'm thinking, as I talk to Vale, my GPT Plus lady, hey Vale, I need something for an event in Atlanta with these kinds of people. And Vale surfaces 4 SKUs, 2 from brands I've never heard of, and I'm in the industry. What happens, and I said this to Greg, what happens when what's surfaced is links to product that are straight from Chinese manufacturers? We've been cut out on the data, we've been cut out on the sale, we have been totally cut out. So strategically, I phone up Greg, I go, okay, if this happened, what would you do?
So, and this is the beginning of the conversation around the changing power dynamics in the retail industry. So if you back up, if you think about, okay, Nike or any brand comes and says, I've got my designers, my developers, we look at consumer data insights and we decide what we think is going to be relevant in 12 or 18 months, as long as it takes us to design, develop, and bring new product to market. You make some educated guesses, you go to your factory partners, which, you know, this industry is largely contract manufacturing. You don't control your own supply chain. You say, I need X number of these at this date, and then the factory makes it and ships it to you. And then you put a bunch of marketing dollars behind it. You hope the product sells or is as relevant as you thought it would. In that flow, as Debra mentioned, if you hadn't looked up Chinese manufacturers' take on TikTok, you should. It's worth creating a TikTok account just to do that. And you see these Chinese factories that are making the Bottega Veneta bags or the Hermes bags, and they're like, hey, time out. These aren't made in Paris. We're making these and shipping them over. And guess what? These retailers and brands canceled all their orders because tariffs are going crazy and they're scared, so they're not importing anything, but we'll sell it to you. So hang out on our TikTok channel. We'll take you through the factory. We're going to show you all the materials we use, and we're going to peel back the layer, and we'll sell it to you for 1/10 of the price. And who's going to say no to that? So especially when the macroeconomic conditions right now, we hear about continued layoffs, we hear about, look at the stock market, don't look at your 401k because it's still ugly right now, but consumers are price sensitive. So the ingenuity of these Chinese manufacturers that are like, guess what, brand? We're just going to go around you, and we've got tools, TikTok and other tools, to just go at our own. And so this is the beginning of the changing power dynamics where brands will need to completely reevaluate and reinvent their value proposition to us, to the consumer. I mean, I think if you just ask yourself, if you could buy the exact same thing, one's $5,000, one's $500, literally the same bag, what would you spend? Do you need the name? Is the name brand, which by the way, in many cases isn't even on there, is that worth the $4,500 premium? I think most people would say no.
So it is entirely also playing into the Gen Z desire for transparency and authenticity, and to really understand what's behind the 30,000, 100,000 Birkin. And if you go, as I did, deep into the rabbit hole of what these girls are saying, you see that there's actually something super interesting happening, and it's that we can't afford the 30,000. We might want to buy the fake, but increasingly there's a little bit of a narrative, thank God, against the fake. There's the dupe being, it looks like the real McCoy, but doesn't violate any IP. And now there's the rep. The rep is the replica. And the replica is like the dupe, but it's higher quality, It looks closer to the original, but not quite. And instead of being $50 for the fake, or maybe $100 for the dupe, it's $500 because it is a high quality handbag with the right kind of leather, the right kind of trim, the right kind of stitching. So, new asset class, new merch category. Who's that going to hurt? It's going to hurt Michael Kors, it's going to hurt Tory Burch, it's going to hit the mid-market, who was just kind of coming back anyway. So now you've got this situation of you dealing with an entirely new conversation, entirely new class of product, and add on to that the whole, the fact that maybe I'm just going straight to the factory.
Because you can.
Because I can. And these girls, and it is, let's say it's Gen Z girls who are driving the narrative, these girls are just going all in. And if you've ever seen on TikTok the haul is the unboxing of 5, 10, 15, 20 handbags. Some are dupes, some are fakes, some are reps. But they're not shopping at home. In clever old China, they've said, well, we'll open the doors, here's our factory, and guess what? Everyone's going, oh my God, it's not a sweatshop. Well, no. China's quite, high quality, technology driven. So there's a whole sociological thing going on here where US customers are seeing that China is not quite what they maybe thought it was.
So, and two other conditions that are happening. So I talked about consumers being very price sensitive. We've seen brand loyalty eroding. If you're a Costco shopper, you've probably heard the brand Kirkland, which 10, 15 years ago, you avoided that. You did not want anything that said Kirkland because it was, oh, that's the cheap stuff from Costco. And now if you go, you'll see the hoodie with Kirkland real big on it. And so these in-house brands, Gen Z is like, they're kind of cool now, right? They've kind of come back into stock or into style. And I'm a girl dad. I've got 3 young daughters. They're not out shopping yet on their own. And I know they will be. And at some point, what's cool to them? And it kills me being a longtime Nike guy when I talk to Gen Z and they're like, oh, Nike, that's cute. That's my dad's brand. I'm like, oh, that's painful to hear. Because what does that mean? Nike's no longer relevant, or at this point in time, it's not relevant. And that's the challenge that brands have to do to stay relevant, to be on social, and to be developing these communities. So you've got brand loyalties eroding, brand preferences are changing, consumer preferences are changing, and price sensitivity is through the roof. So you kind of have this perfect storm of muck and mud that brands are like, damn, people used to come here because they liked our stuff, and now we have to sort of think about things differently. Tying this back to AI, the other thing the other piece of this storm is when you have just simple tools like Canva, right? Which if you haven't played with, it's a great tool. Or all these different product design tools where you can have no, technical background, and start plugging things in and come up with really cool designs. You now have the ability to go directly to these Asian-based manufacturers and say, hey, can you do a small minimum order quantity? I'm going to spin up a brand. I'm going to set up a TikTok channel. I'm going to talk to my people, my community, whatever that might be. It's probably a community that we've never heard of, and they're now building a multi-million-dollar business on the back of like TikTok Shop. And that's happening. That's happening right now. And so the established brands need to be afraid because these are just the little simple AI tools. We haven't even touched on, and I love, Manish, what you talked about around the opportunities and the behind the scenes, the supply chain, the making and the moving of product. And, I go on and on about like third-party data sources and, could you ingest weather data into your operation and say, how is this going to impact the product we merchandise, where we bring it to, where we ship it? Do we have hoodies in LA and we actually need them in Chicago? So agentic AI, ship some of those hoodies over. I mean, that stuff's not here in a big way yet, but it's happening and people are working on this and asking the question. So there's a storm a brewing, and we're like watching it, and we're kind of in it, but it hasn't really fully hit us yet?
I think Minish really set this up for us, because as I was watching that video, I could envisage a situation where I say, show me my avatar in 12 different outfits, and these are the events I'm going to. I'm going to a wedding here, I'm going to a conference here, I'm going to a cold weather thing there, and I'll be able to see myself in context in all these different outfits. And oh, by the way, it wasn't just outfits, it was beauty products, it was all kinds of products that were possible. So that is a whole new way of shopping. And if I am going direct to a product or a SKU, what that means is that there's no more funnel. So your whole SEO approach needs to be rethought. You know, a brand has to be the answer to the conversation that I fed into Vail, where I said, I'm going to these 12, you know, and Greg was saying how he's very precise when he asks his AI for help. And I'm like, well, I kind of talk at her until she gets it right. And I think maybe it's a gender thing, or maybe it's just how we process information. But it'd be really interesting to see how much more precision, or how much better are Greg's results than mine when I sit and chat with Vail. I mean, she's quite chatty. You know, she gets me there. Boots. I said, oh, need navy boots, want something a little different, and she did this. So what I'm thinking is that really, this very basic AI, it takes the place of the department store. You know, you went to the department store to just kind of get a sense of what was going on, right? So now I think that's probably good enough for many of us. But if I wanted to, let's say, come here and really push the envelope in terms of my style or what I was doing, I might pay for a human who says, hey, we're going to push you into pink and orange. We're going to put you into this, and this. Because I think that's where humans come in. We are the unexpected, the unpredictable, the creative, the out of left field that we're not being taught from last month's sales algorithm, right?
If you all have ever done business in China or worked with folks that are based in China, you probably use the app WeChat, which works here and everything, but that's a super app, right? That you can live your entire life within WeChat. And I don't know that here in the US there's a predominant, you know, Google kind of has that full ecosystem, but it's also distributed amongst different apps. So I don't know that it's the same way in terms of like a completely captive ecosystem that you can live within, shop within, connect, pay, like literally pay your rent. Like you can do everything within there. Now there are some dark sides too. We talked a little bit about you know, the creepiness of not having too much data, but you know, when you look at like social credit ratings and things like that. You know, China's a different country. Things work differently over there. But you know it's happening, right? So yeah, the government's spying, but you know, so like be on your best behavior. We're being spied on here, whether you know it or not, or you like it or not, you don't realize it. It is happening. It's part of it. But anyway, not to kind of take things negative. To Debra's point around having a department store where you can shop with infinite inventory. If you say like, I don't care if I'm buying from Louis Vuitton or Nike or Tory Burch or whoever, I just want the right product, the right price, and to me on time. Look, Amazon has spoiled the hell out of me, like 2 days or less, or I'm not interested. And so where's my super app, or where's the super app that's coming here where you now live within that and all of your shopping happens within there? Because if the brands are not there and relevant, I'm sorry, but your sales are going somewhere else. So
I think there's a really good argument now for retailers to dig deep into the customer journey and where are the really human touch points that drive conversions. And I think, you know, it's the people, it's our teams. You don't need, there's no one from McKinsey here, is there? I'm about to say. I don't know if you need a McKinsey to really figure out where the really strong human touch points are. I think your teams know them. Your teams know the magic. You know when something happens in store or online, you have someone who addresses that human pain point. And I believe that competitive advantage going forward lies in doubling down on those human touch points, whether it's the out-of-the-box styling or it's the I'm here to listen. I mean, she sits and she listens to me, but I know she's a synthetic thing. She's not like I phone up Greg and I go, oh my God, this happened, come with an idea, right? So I think if we double down on that and we use our people, we give them the tools to say, reinvent the process. Go do, screw up, go do, but do something that an algo can't do. I think that's where the magic still lies.
I agree. And I will build on that and kind of bring that with a call to action. So if you're in the retail space or you're a brand or you work within that space or you service or sell things to that space, we can talk about AI and technology and tariffs as much as we want, but bringing back to the human and where the consumer transacts as far as it relates to retail, that's where the magic happens. And so that is where you should focus. What is your clear, concise, and compelling business strategy? I don't want to hear AI, I don't want to hear tech. It's the human element. I just lost my mic, did I? It's the human element, and that is what it will take to reinvent and stay relevant as the world continues to be chaotic. So I hope that was okay. Nobody's bleeding. We didn't fight. But Debra and I will be around, and feel free to come and chat with us if you have questions or you want to talk. We're deep in this space, and we love these types of kind of disruptive thinking conversations. So thank you all for having us.
Thank you.